Okay, Robert Downey Jr. told me this had to be the best Q&A, and that's like a lot of pressure. So no matter what, I want you all to act like I'm good, okay? My name is Janelle Riley. He's not out yet, so save it for that. I'm so thrilled to be here tonight. I'm so thrilled to welcome today's guests. They are all Oscar nominees for their work on Oppenheimer. I want to start with a 3-time Academy Award nominee. You love to hate him as Louis Strauss, a role that's already earned him a Golden Globe and Critics' Choice Award. Please welcome Robert Downey Jr. We have a fantastic journeyman actor who's already won a Golden Globe Award for this performance. He's the only actor who could have played this role. Please welcome Cillian Murphy. The director of all my favorite films. This is someone who has never made a movie that was less than excellent. He's constantly pushing the envelope, finding new ways to tell stories through his writing and his visuals. He is the writer, director, producer of Oppenheimer. I am so honored and thrilled and a little bit intimidated to welcome Christopher Nolan. I'm so sorry. I think we're out of time now. Thank you all so much for being here. Congratulations on, I'm just gonna say, the best movie of the year. And I really want to start at the beginning, because whenever I have people as accomplished as any of you, I actually like to know where it all began. What was your first job in this industry? The first time you felt you were an actor, or the first, film set you were ever on? For you, it was probably at school, I'm thinking.
I never had a proper entry into the film business. So I just started making films when I was a little kid with a Super 8 camera. I borrowed my dad's Super 8 camera and I started shooting films with friends of mine and stuff. And I just have always made films at whatever level somebody would let me. And, they cost a lot more than they used to. Hopefully I'm getting better at it. But yeah, I never really had that moment. I mean, my first film was Following, which was a...
I'm sorry, you said Following.
It was a 16-year-old black and white film made with myself and friends of mine who were working full-time jobs, not in the film industry, and we would get together on weekends and make a film. And so that was really my kind of entry into filmmaking. So to me, it's sort of something that I've always done, and I'm just thrilled that I get to do it.
Have you gone back and looked at any of those old 16mm short films lately?
I have, and a little disappointing. Especially the Super 8 ones I was making when I was, 8 years old. Yeah. Do not live up to my memory of what I thought I was doing at the time. But I guess you're gonna cut yourself some slack.
Oh, please release them.
So, that's a very bad idea. Never do anything like that.
And Robert, what about for you?
John Sayles did a movie called Baby It's You. I got 2 weeks work. I told all my friends I was going to become a film icon. I was cut out of it, and when all my friends saw me next, they said, "Hey Robert, maybe it's you." Because I was just obscured in the background of 1 or 2 shots.
Okay.
Auspicious beginnings.
But still, first job out of the gate working with John Sayles, not too shabby.
Not bad, no. I mean, I'd done my dad's stuff, of course, but that was forced child labor.
And Cillian, for you?
On a film set, my route is a bit more meandering. It was probably like short films at home in Ireland, and then smaller parts in Irish films. It's just kind of very, very gradual, really.
But you started on stage, right? So
yeah, an awful lot of theatre, like mostly theatre till I was in my mid-20s, yeah.
Was the plan, did you always want to do films, or did you think it was just going to be a stage career? Just going to be, I'm sorry for all the theatre actors.
No Freudian slip there.
I always loved films. I was always watching films. I would spend I'd go see the films like 2 or 3 times a day, and I was bunking off college or school or whatever, but it was like curiosity, really. I loved acting, and anywhere I could do it, I would try and do it. So, you know, at the time, it's a small industry in Ireland, but I was getting work there, and then it was gradual.
For the record, it seems irrelevant. I've seen Cillian on stage.
So have I.
Doing a one-man show.
Minutemen?
Mr. Man and the Walsh. And what you saw him do in 3 hours here with that intensity, he was doing twice a day, every day for months. I have no idea how he did it. It was absolutely incredible. But, yeah.
I was a younger man.
It wasn't that long ago. Robert, I'm actually curious because as someone, you know, who your father was in the business, did you ever want to sort of rebel and not go into acting?
I tried working in retail, but I had sticky fingers. This was before all the video, you know, surveillance and stuff. They just caught me. I worked thrifty. I was on a 3-man thievery crew there. My buddy Lino ran the register. I was in inventory, and I remember 2 years where my forearms smelled like dairy because I ran the ice cream station right on 19th and Wilshire there in Santa Monica. Perhaps I served you.
So you were forced to fall back on acting.
It's the only thing I've been able to ever do something like right in my life.
Well, I'm so glad it worked out that way. I want to start at the beginning with Oppenheimer because you're obviously known for taking these stories that are epic in scope, but also so personal and intimate. What was it about the story of Robert Oppenheimer that spoke to you?
I mean, there are a few things that come together over time, starting really with my childhood and growing up in the United Kingdom in the 80s. It was a time of a lot of fear about nuclear weapons and nuclear Armageddon, and it was something that was very prevalent in the pop culture at the time. So the first time I ever heard the name Oppenheimer was in Sting's song Russians, where he talks about nuclear weapons as Oppenheimer's deadly toys. And so over the years, it's something that's always kind of stuck with me. And at some point, I learned this story that coming up to the Trinity test, Oppenheimer and his fellow scientists on the Manhattan Project could not completely eliminate the possibility that they might start an atmospheric ignition with that test and destroy the world. And they went ahead and did it anyway. And so I put that in my previous film, Tenet, as a sort of way of trying to explain the science fiction conceit, you know, at the heart of that. And coming out of that film, Rob Pattinson, who's in Tenet, he gave me a book of Oppenheimer's speeches from the 1950s as a wrap gift. And reading those speeches, reading Oppenheimer try to articulate with the great eloquence he had some kind of set of ideas of how you protect the world from the change that they brought about was really terrifying and really got me hooked. And then this project really came together when my fellow producer, Chuck Roven, suggested I read American Prometheus, Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin's book. And from that point onwards, I was just really hooked.
I actually want to talk about, because I started to read that book. It started a few months ago. And it does, in my opinion, what a great adaptation should, which is that it's true to the spirit and it captures the story, but it is also very specific to the film medium. Looking at that book, I wouldn't even know where to begin. You know, did you hit upon sort of this triptych of storytelling from the beginning?
I mean, not from the beginning. I think structure being very important to me. I don't start writing a screenplay until I know how I'm going to construct it. And particularly working with a non-chronological structure, I always write from page 1 through to the end of the film because I want to write it the way the audience is going to receive it. So my process on this was to read the book again after I'd read it and then sit with it for a while and just try to take notes on the things that I remembered. It's sort of, I mean, the best way I could characterize it is like if I were at a dinner party and I were trying to explain to somebody why they should read the book, what are those things? What are the things that really hook you narratively? And then looking at structure to kind of try and find a form for it. And one of the things that I found in the book was this potential antagonist in the form of Louis Strauss and what that would provide. And in particular, you know, I mean, writers adapting the book, you have to be a magpie, you have to be looking for these little jewels. there's a reference towards the end of American Prometheus to the fact that it was John F. Kennedy who cast a vote against Strauss in his Senate confirmation hearings, and you just think, okay, let's follow that thread and see where that goes. And so I went to the Senate records, the transcripts of the hearings, and found the testimony from David Hill that Rami Malek gives, and those are the real words he used and everything. And yeah, there was just all this great stuff. And so it's really a process of just trying to follow the things that you as a moviegoer get hooked by. What would you want to see in the film? How would you want to see the tension around this?
And I was passingly familiar, or so I thought, with Oppenheimer. I'd never heard of Louis Strauss, which is somehow appropriate, I think.
I'm starting to think he was on the grassy knoll based on what Chris just revealed.
But for the actors, I'm curious, what did you know?
Sorry, this might be our last Q&A. We're trying to have nice times.
I told you, I said it had to be the best one ever, so it's on you.
Yeah, so far she's holding up.
Oh, it was for me? Thank you. But I am curious. I think, first of all, every actor dreams about getting the call that, Christopher Nolan's interested in meeting with you. Cillian, you've had that call 6 times now?
Yes.
Wow. Is it a thrill every time, or did you have any idea what the project was?
Always. I mean, it's always out of the blue. That's the thing. It's always unexpected. There's no any warning. Which is the way it should be, I mean, and this time it really happened to come at a perfect time. But I'm sure he planned all of this. He does everything on purpose. Nothing is by mistake. But I didn't know anything that Chris was writing it or anything. So he just called me up, and it was very casual, very understated.
And I've painted myself into a corner because I can't now call him up and ask him to dinner or something. And I'd say, he gets on the phone like, yeah.
If it's not the offer,
just wanted to go to Pizza Express or something.
Really, Pizza Express?
Oh, in London, absolutely.
What's that one that everyone, the Indian food that everyone loves? That's a chain. No.
Let's take a brief intermission while we get our answers to this burning question together.
Nando's. Like I said. Robert, for you, what was it like to again, I'm assuming it's a call. I know it's not an email, but or a text. But I assume you get a call, and is it something that you had given any warning about? Are you told to read a script, or?
Yeah, I got the call that I should go over to Chris's house, which was already kind of exciting. I'd been casing the place for weeks. So and then I went in and read it, and then he said, "Will you do it?" And I was like, "There's a lot of stops." I think if I come in, that was just the beginning of my re-education camp under Chris Nolan, and it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. I was at a place in my life and my career where I needed someone to have a vision of what was possible for me that I couldn't see for myself. And I think it was the same for Cillian too. It's like, he's been your secret weapon for, almost like 5 films, and then you're like, but it's all been leading to this.
Yeah.
And so there was this sense of destiny to it, I think. And sometimes someone needs to lead the charge for what destiny is to be.
What do you do when you leave actors alone with your script that you've been working on so hard, and you're putting it out there into the world?
You know those paintings that have the eyes in them that move out of the side? I think I saw that family portrait's lids kind of flicker a little bit. Just speculating.
It's also not a quick read. You have to leave them for a while, and I would be sweating in the other room so badly.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it a long time. So showing it to Emma, she's the first person I show the script to. That's Emma Thomas, producer on the film, and my wife. So she's always the first read, and I used to actually sit and watch her read it, and then she read Memento. I remember very clearly sitting in our little apartment, And
I'm sorry, he said Memento.
Yeah, let's go.
It's like the greatest movie of all
I'll help with cues on the side here if you need.
but I watched her read it, and it would literally, she would read it and go, turn the pages back. And I'm never doing this again. I mean, she liked it when she got to the end, but it was that shot my nerves. So no, I go for a walk or whatever. In the case, I flew over to Dublin to show Cillian the script, and I went to the Hugh Lane Gallery and looked at the reconstruction of Francis Bacon's studio they have there, which is beautiful and highly recommended. And that kept me busy for a few hours, and then came back, and it was a little nerve-wracking because he'd agreed to do the film without reading the script, which was very generous of him. But fortunately, he liked the script. So, but it's a thrilling experience for me because they're the first people reading it, the first people I'm talking to about it. So those initial conversations, I mean, it's incredibly important, feedback for me. So it's kind of the beginning of the journey.
Cillian, were you like so grateful it was good because you'd already said yes?
Oh, come on, I know it was good. I knew it was going to be good. I just didn't know it was going to be that bloody good, It genuinely was like one of those thrilling experiences I've had reading a script. It was just magnificent. And like Robert knows this, just so you guys know, they print them on red paper in black ink with your name kind of watermarked all over it. And then it's this very dense, complex script. So you really, really have to focus. Like you're working your ass off reading that script. But it's so rewarding, and it takes several hours. It took three hours or at least to read it. But it was like I closed it and I went, "That's one of the greatest scripts I have ever read."
Wow.
And he's sent me. So that's huge,
Robert, what was sort of your take on Lewis? Because in some ways, he's very complex. You created someone who is clearly a real person. There but for the grace of God go I understand what it's like to be that person who feels, short-shrifted. When you initially read the role, were you intimidated or excited or a combination of all of the above?
I'm such a weirdo because I'm obsessed with the Cold War and World War II, all this stuff, and I'm starting to realize recently that there's a reason. So I read it and I thought, wow, this will be pretty darn different for me. And honestly, I don't know if I've said this to you yet, Chris, but it was your faith that the fact that you were having me read it and asked me if I would do it was saying that you had decided at some point that I would be possibly best suited for it. And sometimes you just need someone else to say, you might not see this, but I'm telling you that I see that this is in you. And I think that's, a great gift for directors to bring. The reason I say I'm thinking about it is there's this book series that's been around for a while, but it's about The Fourth Turning. And it talks about how basically every 80 years we go into this, fourth generation where we kind of almost destroy ourselves, or we figure out that we want to keep moving on as a species and not be as divided. And it's the visionary timing. Forget everything else. Forget that it made $1 billion. Forget that it's one of the best movies of the century so far and all that stuff. Forget that we had a great time. Forget that Cillian did one of the great leading roles in the last, I'd say, 25, 30 years. It's the timing proves that you're a visionary filmmaker. I just figured that out. Thank you. I'm a little late to me.
Your ensembles are always so fantastically flawless, and I love that it's a mix of maybe actors I've seen but not in roles like this before, some new faces I've never seen, and then some faces I haven't seen in a while that are so welcome on screen. Josh Hartnett was so great in this. Yeah.
Great actor. Well, it's an auspicious day to talk about John Papsadero, our casting director.
Yes, that's right.
His casting's just been put in as captain. Finally, fantastic. And so John Papsadero we've worked together since Memento. And he's put together a lot of incredible casts for me, but this, to me, was a whole other level. And there are so many parts to cast. I didn't at script stage want to make composite characters. So the way I wrote the script is if Louis Alvarez reproduced the experiments, but the atom, I had Louis Alvarez do it, even though he's only got couple of scenes, and John, would find Alex Wolff to come and play that, or obviously Rami Malek playing David Hill. But I mean, the depth of the cast, as you say, right down to people like James Remar, who we haven't seen in a while, who was just fabulous and improvised the best line in the film, unfortunately for me. So,
that was an improv.
It was indeed.
Honeymoon?
About the honeymoon. I mean, when I said it was an improv, he turned up to set to shoot that scene, with all these great actors packed into this tiny office. And the line was there in the script about taking Kyoto off the list because of its cultural significance. And he kept sort of saying to me, honeymoon, because he'd done his reading about Stimson, as all these actors have done. They came to set knowing a lot more about their individual parts than I did. And that was incredibly helpful. And one of the things he kept pointing out was that Stimson had taken his wife on his honeymoon in Kyoto. And I finally just said, you should say that, And so he did, and he just worked it in. And, unfortunately for the writer in me, it's the line everybody likes the most. It's okay. Makes the film work. There you go. No, and it was, and Matt Damon as well. Incredible work as an actor, and then as a writer. He's an Oscar-winning writer, remember? And he came to me right at the end, looking at the conclusion of his character, what he says in the security hearings, and he wanted to add this line that's not from the transcript. Everything else is from the transcripts. It's edited together, and so I was very resistant to changes. But he wanted to say, I don't think I would have cleared any of those guys. But he had the transcript, and he had marked all the pages where Groves, he showed it to me like legal precedent. He was like, okay, he said this here and this there, and that adds up to this sentiment, and that justifies putting it in, because he knew I wouldn't do it unless he could really convince me that it was true to the transcript, and he was right. He put the work in, and it nails the scene. Unfortunately for him, to let me cut out a great bit that he did right before it, because I didn't need it anymore. But what he gave us was just a wonderful conclusion, and that, and then you go on to Ken Branagh or Macon Blair, who's just incredible, just wonderful ensemble, just giving me ideas and suggestions all the time, and improvising as needed. And it was so much fun to be a part of, really.
They're also great, but you all work so well together. I mean, it's one thing to cast great actors, but you all really have chemistry, for lack of a better word, in all your scenes. And actually, in the scenes that you two have together, I love how you play off each other. Did you ever have to, apologize to him at the end of the day?
He's the one who's acting like a dick in every scene, right?
That's Strauss talking.
Sorry. You first, buddy.
Oh, for me, you have to remember, I was going through this thing, and I was really, really focused, and it was a intensely fast shoot, we were moving all around the place, and I wasn't in great shape, you know what I mean? Just because there was a lot to do, but then the kind of to look at the call sheet and think and see that this guy's coming in tomorrow and you'll be working with Robert Downey Jr. and then the next day you're going to be working with Matt Damon, the next day you're going to be working with Gary Oldman. It was mind-blowing, and it just kept me going every day, and these extraordinary actors, and they were so supportive, and they were obviously extraordinary in the scenes, but then just really supportive and kind around the work as well. But particularly our scenes, I just got a real fizz off them. I don't know, something happens. And Chris is, like I said, nothing is by accident, but there was something in those scenes. I don't know, for me it was energetically, something just kind of clicked when we were working those scenes. And you can't predict that, or you can't design it. It just kind of happens, and it seemed to happen.
Well, and I know the script is out now, but it's implicit again in the text. So we both knew that you're fission and I'm fusion. You're oil and I'm vinegar, and therefore we know as players what that means, But what we all saw, and I think I can speak for the entire cast, was we saw him doing an ultra marathon in the Gobi Desert in a vapor lock with our director, and we would just kind of come in and go like, wow, just like add to this and complement this and like hand him water as he goes by. It was like that. It was just like a Tour de France thing. It was like, what are you doing? I'm gonna go rest for 2 days. I'm exhausted. What are you doing? We're taking the hill. You know, I was like, Jesus. Every time we dropped back in, they just rendered some other exquisite, epic set of scenes. I was like, geez, brother, I don't know how you did it, because I know the way he works, and it is barely survivable. Unless you are made of stuff. And I think the inspiration, I think it was in the text, but man, I've never seen anything like it, Mr. Murphy. Never.
I'm actually curious for the actors, because these are roles that you're playing across decades, and you're having to keep track of these stories' arcs. And can you sort of talk about your process of actors, how you prepared to know where everything was, so when it comes to the day that you're shooting, you're able to jump around and access the emotions on those days? Strauss is kind of, he starts off really kind of worshiping this guy and then wants to destroy him.
Yes. Again, sometimes I'm not saying that we're all a little flighty by nature, but a lot of this was Papa Bear corralling us and creating this environment where we could start to work it. And so he took away everything that wasn't necessary, and then he started kind of shaping the scenes. And again, I would watch Cillian, like the way Cillian really stuck to his guns about what he was feeling, and then there'd be these adjustments, and it felt really graceful. So I think that you two set this precedent, that you had this calm and this trust and this understanding, and everyone was like, this is so focused, but it's so free too. Like, it was one of the least constricting sets I've ever been on that I never sat down on for 12 plus hours a day. Now, I'm no SAG rep, but this is not for the faint of heart. And when you see them doing it, and they've done it now half a dozen times, you're like, I guess I gotta do it too. And I wound up just kind of getting into it, because it was such a isolated incident of pure focus, and like I've said before, it's like almost like this monastic devotional thing.
Well, I want to be clear on this chairs thing, because what I heard is everyone's too busy to sit down. It's not.
I thought Chris would want us to stand for the whole Q&A. I honestly wasn't sure. I'm just waiting for his cue.
They're not like forbidden. It's just that everyone's too busy working.
We don't have a video village. So when people talk about chairs on set, they're not talking about chairs for everybody. They're talking about the director and producers, and then lead actors have a nice little cozy thing around a giant monitor, and it's in a big tent. And
I had no helicopter budget. I mean, this is very distressing.
So no, I like to be by the camera with the actors, watching what's going on. So we don't build that video village, but there are chairs all over the place.
Okay.
So those.
No, there's not.
Yeah, chairs. I give the chair backs to my mother because she has the same name. She's Chris. So she's got a whole collection of my chair backs. I have proof, but
It's that you hate inefficiency, and it's this thing where you've come to learn. Like, I hate to say it, but people that worked with you afterwards, if they're smart, they go, he's kind of onto something.
Yeah.
Now, whether we can do it is something else entirely, but if you can create that kind of environment, you get this kind of result. So there you have it.
Directors' chairs are really uncomfortable. I don't know who designed them for the sets, but they're terrible. Cillian, going back to the other question about keeping track not only of his emotional changes, but his physical changes. How did you even know? Like, you'd show up one day, would hair and makeup have to tell you what century you were in?
We did an awful lot of prep. Chris is a big believer in prep. I love prep, and like I was researching on my own and prepping on my own, and then I'd fly over and back here to do camera tests and makeup tests and costume tests, and we had incredible HODs, like really incredible, the whole crew, and everything was prepped and planned, and did so much fittings, and all of the old age makeup, all of that was prepped in advance, months and months and months and months in advance. And then, like, you know, because I made Inception with Chris, and that was a complicated script, and that was a complicated story, and I remember being in whatever level of my own dream I was in at certain times. And, you know, you just have to lean really heavily on Chris, because it came from his imagination.
So the fact that Oppenheimer was awake for the whole story just made it significantly easier for you. But I would see him, literally, the second we walked in, the first time we really met, we were going up to Chris's office, and I was just like, dude, even just your energy in the elevator, I was like, man, he's starting to really molt and transform himself. And I was like, I better get my shit together.
Well, how much does it help you as actors to, you know, you can do all this preparation, but then you show up to set and you step into those costumes, you put on that hat. I imagine you start walking. I mean, you know, you're almost unrecognizable near the end, and it's fascinating. Do you even see yourself in that?
Yeah, I think when I'm a skinny old bullfrog later on, that you'll have seen it on screen already. However, I think there's just something about the stillness, and I know you know this already, and Chris, I'm sure you've seen this effect it has on actors, but the attention to the sanctity of this hardware. Like, this is a camera. This isn't going on someone's fucking chip. We're shooting on film. We're making a movie. You hear the machinery running. Sometimes you can't hear each other in a scene from here to here because the IMAX is running. And you just feel like you're transported back to the time when it was this privilege to put things on film with master filmmakers, and you just feel it. You're transported into this place. And then, because everything was like a Twilight Zone episode, you know, remember that Twilight Zone episode where the guy, he's like someone who checks whether this set is legit or whatever, and then he's really transported back in time. It was like a Twilight Zone episode occasionally. You're Rod Serling.
I am curious because you literally have to create new technologies for your movies. Are you setting out to do that? Like, did you know that they never shot IMAX in black and white before, or is that just something you suggest and then you learn, oh, that we have to figure out a way to do that?
I mean, it always comes from a story. And in this case, Hoyter and myself, we knew we wanted to shoot large format film for the color sequences. And we knew we wanted to shoot true black and white, not desaturated color, because it has a very different effect. True black and white film, all colors respond to do differently. I mean, the famous Cillian Murphy blue eyes look more extraordinary in black and white, even than they do in color, because of the way that black and white responds to the color blue as opposed to the color red, and things like that. So we knew we wanted to do that, but we didn't want to shoot them on 35 if we didn't have to. We wanted them to match, you know, the grandeur of everything else, and not feel more grainy or different in other ways. And so a tiny bit of research showed us that no one had ever done it before. I mean, there'd only ever been some high contrast visual effects elements were done 65mm, but no one had ever shot full spectrum black and white 65mm 5-perf, let alone 15-perf. So Kodak and Photocam, I mean, Hoyter, he pushed them, you know, we pushed them. And the thing about Hoyter is he's not just, I mean, he's the greatest DP working today, in my opinion, but he's also an engineer. You can literally build, I mean, I went to his house the other day, he built a jibber home out of metal. I mean, he's in his garage, he just builds these things and mills them, and he has a CNC machine. He thinks like an engineer.
Shouldn't he have that? It sounds dangerous.
No.
He's also got a really cool sneaker collection.
Very cool sneaker collection.
Okay, just check.
But he can literally build his way and design his way out of a problem and involve his whole team in that, and involve the special effects guys in that and that kind of thing. So on Dunkirk, you know, he was figuring out how to make, you know, crazy lens attachments and getting down to Starkit Panavision to figure out how to make that work. And so, you know, he speaks that language of problem solving, not just accepting what already exists, but saying, okay, but what if you do it differently? Or what if you do that? And so with his help, we were able to, you know, push it through. And the first time we shot these guys in the hair and makeup test was the first time Kodak had sent us a batch of this film that they made for the first time. And we projected it on the big screen at City Walk, the big IMAX screen, and we just never seen anything like it. I mean, it was, yeah, there's still actually that's pretty prominent. There's a black and white still of you know, matching the cover of the book quite well. That's a frame taken out. It's not a still, it's actually a frame taken from the hair and makeup test. The detail is incredible. It's just a thrill to be able to challenge everybody to do something they haven't done before. And that, you know, includes all the people in the lab and at Kodak and Panavision and IMAX, you know, and it keeps everybody a little more invested, I think.
You're both journeyman actors who have been doing this for a long time and somehow continue to get better when I don't think it's possible. Do you still learn new things about acting? Like, is there something you learned on this film that you didn't know before?
I mean, you have to keep learning the whole time. That's the journey, I think, for all of us. Every job has to represent a challenge. I know it's a hoary old cliche that actors say, but that has to be, it has to be difficult. It can't be easy, you know, it has to be a stretch. It has to make you reach, I think. And then you find after that, okay, now I'm here, like, what's the next reach? That's certainly how it is for me, and it's a constant learning endeavor for me, just trying to figure new stuff out and seeing how far you can push it, you know. And that's the other thing about Chris, like, he really pushes you in the best way possible, you know, and it's exactly what Robert was saying. I think he sees something in actors that you don't actually see in yourself. I certainly think for this, and like, it was like, it's very gentle but forceful. The sort of push.
He said gentle. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of a roasting here. It's like, he said gentle.
No, here comes the roast. I'll take it. Thanks, man. I got to do an interview with Chris a few weeks back, and they said, Robert, basically the same question. I said, I realized that I had an incomplete education, and I feel like I went to a master class. I don't think that I'm done now, but I feel like there was a lot of, again, I was incomplete, and I learned a lot of that through watching Chris and Cillian and having this experience. It changed my life. And then they said, and Chris, did you learn anything from Rob? He said, nothing. That's a direct quote, and it's going to be a black and white scene.
You know, I have to intervene at this point. It is a direct quote. About half an hour later, I called the journalist afterwards and I said, no, I figured it out. I gave a glib answer in the moment, and I figured it out. And I said, what I learned about, and this is true, okay? You'll see it, whatever, I don't know which.
No, just clean it up.
Okay,
Go ahead.
clean up. No, I said what had surprised me about your process is that you're able to show tremendous generosity to the other performers. And that allows you to dominate the scene. I mean, some people will dominate the scene through selfishness.
And the first time you said it, you actually did say nothing, because I already knew that was in him. So to be honest, it goes back to the first question, which is that's what visionary means. He sees things that are not visible to others. It's weird when he sees things in you that are not visible to self, but that's part of the journey.
Yeah, but the generosity is something that I learned. I had not seen that combination of things, because everything I think about that GSC meeting where Strauss comes in and everyone's around that table, and there was such concern over the days we were shooting that from you that I saw for everybody else doing their best, and that I think you must, you know, in some sense feed off that as you do it, but it raises everybody. I mean, it was wonderful to see.
It does.
Yeah.
That sort of care, no, but that level of care you have for everyone in the room, that everyone rises to that. It's really true.
But I saw it with you too, because you hosted it for everyone else. Do you know what it's like to be so tired and Chris thinks you need to keep losing weight? Usually you lose weight and then you're free, but you were never free. He put all the skinniest stuff at the end, but he wanted you skinny to begin with. He was practically weighing your food. And the space you made for everyone who's coming in for a day, you also really hosted it while staying in character. And so I was kind of just picking up what I was seeing being put down. And I don't want to use the G word with you, but you're generous in the time that you afford to be able to help people find the scenes if they're not exactly on point 1,000,000%.
I love you, man.
Oh, you were
Unprecedented. This is officially the best Q&A that we have ever done.
I mean, did you see him on Paul Bear last night as well? It's fucking
Dude, this is a whole new Chris.
revelation.
Come on, we know he's funny. We've seen his movies.
Maybe a podcast? No. Too cool for that.
Well, you just said something so nice about everyone up here, myself included. I don't think we can top that. I'm going to ask everyone to stay seated because they actually do have to be somewhere, so if they can get out of here. This movie is everywhere. You can see it again and again. I learn something new every time I watch it. I cannot wait for Halloween to come back because this year I want to go as Teller. Thank you so much for being here. And again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.